The fourth core area of embodied AI safety is understanding humans and how they interact with machine learning and safety critical systems. There are two important principles here. The first is that humans have a perception response time. Humans cannot react instantly. And you might think, well, they can react in a fraction of a second or a second, but it actually takes longer than that. People have to see something happen. They have to figure out what the heck am I looking at. They have to formulate a response, and then they have to initiate the response. That's perception response time. Now, some responses you can make very, very quick. People sometimes call it muscle memory. But when you have a complex situation, it can take a long time to process it. Ones of seconds, fives of seconds, tens of seconds, depending on what's going on. So that's one thing to remember. It's not instant to respond. It always takes some time to respond. The second thing is a concept called the ironies of automation. The idea is that you have automation complacency and automation bias. Automation complacency is if you're used to a computer-controlled system working really well, then it's really hard to keep paying attention. The other problem is there's a thing called automation bias, which is when presented with a human-generated output and a computer-generated output, people tend to trust the computer regardless of what's really going on. They just overtrust computers. So you add these together, people tend to get complacent and overtrust computers, especially if they've behaved well for a while. And that trust lengthens the perception response time. The more you trust it, the harder it is to react quickly when something goes wrong. So now let's have a plan where we're going to have computers that work almost all the time, but not quite all the time. And we're going to tell people that they have to intervene when something goes wrong. Well, they have limits to how fast they can do it, and it's pretty much guaranteed that the better the system is, the longer it will take them to respond because they're just not expecting it. So the irony here is that the more effective the automation is, the more ineffective human safety supervision will be. So when you hear people being shamed for checking their cell phone while a computer is driving the car down the road, I'm going to say they shouldn't do that for sure. It's the wrong thing to do. But it's basically inevitable. This is what people do. This is how people behave. And so having trouble supervising a really boring automation task is baked into human nature. You can say there's a lack of moral fiber for people who can't pay attention, but really what you're asking them to do is to be superhuman. Yes, you should put down the cell phone, absolutely. But expecting that no one will ever check their cell phone when they go hours and hours watching boring automation that almost never tries to kill them is asking a whole lot. You're not going to get safety that way. This brings about some serious ethical and legal issues. Who's responsible for embodied AI misbehavior, whether it's a car or a drone or a factory-controlled plant or a medical device? If the embodied AI system misbehaves and there was a human who was supposed to intervene, but we know people are bad at intervening when things almost always work correctly, who exactly is responsible? Should we always blame the human, or should the manufacturer have some responsibility for building a system that is easy to supervise and does not make mistakes that are hard for people to correct for? Moreover, blaming the human for not reacting instantly is not going to make it safe. You can set up the human and say, well, it's the human's fault. Our plan is to blame the human. There's a name for that. It's called the moral crumple zone. Hey, we're going to build a system that will make mistakes, and our plan is to blame the human to protect the system. You can do that and you might succeed legally, but you're not going to be building a safe system that way because people have a non-zero PRT that gets longer the better the automation is. So you have to have a plan for how you're going to deal with the fact that your automation will make mistakes and people will take a long time and not be perfect at catching them. What's your story for how the net combination of the computer and the person will actually be acceptably safe in the end?